Hey everybody, Peter Zeihan here, coming to you for one final video from Washington, D.C. Got the White House behind me, so guess who we're going to talk about? The guy who actually lives there now, Joe Biden. Now, commenting on a sitting president is always dangerous because no matter what I say, I'm going to piss everybody off. So let's just get to it, knowing that that is where this is going to go. In terms of previous experience, the only president that we have ever had that is kind of in the same league as Biden for actually having a real grown-up job is Barack Obama. Sometime around the fall of Rome, Biden was a legal clerk for about a year and a half, and he hasn't had a real job since. He has been in the Senate since about the time of the Crusades, and so he's seen a lot, but he hasn't really done much of anything except for sit on meetings. Now, the negatives of this are obvious. He's guided more by ideology than most presidents because he really doesn't have a lot of real-world experience. On the flip side, dude knows how to run a meeting. And when you bring that attitude, that sort of, for lack of a better word, wisdom into a room, it means you realize that you're not going to know everything. And so you're okay with asking questions. You're okay with showing your belly a little bit. And that means, unlike Donald Trump or Barack Obama, Biden is the most engaged president that we've had in, 13, 14 years. You can even make the argument that when it comes to shaping a policy, he's even better than Clinton or W. He's only 2 years in. I'm not willing to say that he's better or worse than W or Clinton. I think the jury's still out, but he's clearly better than Obama or Trump simply because he's willing to use the information that's provided and the tools of state. Now, that doesn't mean that I or anyone have to agree with him. I'm simply talking about managerial competence at this point. And in fact, in economic policy, say what you will about Trump. He had a number of people on his cabinet, especially in the first year, that really knew their way around. And say what you will about W, he had some serious leading lights and intellectual heavyweights. Clinton was able to pick people and throw them at problems fairly effectively. And even Obama, while his cabinet was highly ideological and had very little real-world experience, they were all clever people who understand that if you wanted to get something done, you have to use actually the tools of state. Biden's superior to all of them in that regard, in that he understands and trusts in the power of government, but his cabinet is not all that. He really doesn't have anyone on the cabinet who I would consider a leading light in the space that they're supposed to be regulating. But that is not just a negative. There is a positive to that because there is an understanding throughout his cabinet, taking cues from a boss who doesn't claim to know everything. And for the first time since at least the W administration, cabinet ministers are actually reaching out to industry to ask questions. And that degree of humility is something that I think will bode well for what comes for the next 2 years. That said, I can't say I'm overly impressed with economic policy. I'd probably give that a solid D. Biden is setting us up for a lot of problems that we're going to pay for over the course of the next 50 years. That's a different topic. But on security policy specifically, the fact that Biden was there when the pyramids were built means that he understands what's going on in the world and the broader context of it. So when he sees the Russians carrying out policies that we have not seen for a very long time, he understands exactly where that leads. And so security policy vis-a-vis the Russians and Ukraine and NATO, I kind of give him a B for most of that. Now, security policy is a narrow subset of foreign policy where I am less impressed, which is a narrow subset of all the policies that the president is ultimately responsible for. So I do see some hope. I'm not willing to write off Biden like I have the last 4 at this point. There are reasons to be optimistic, but I think the single biggest one is having a president that doesn't think that he knows everything, and so asks and tries to learn from everybody. I'm going to call that a win. All right, that's it from me. Until next time.